everyone, it's Charissa from the Metagaming Pigeon Shop. I was just coming today to show you how I make these little masks. I know everybody's got a tutorial up right now, but I didn't see one that was the way that our local hospital was asking for them, so I thought I would make my own. They do have, they've got these long strands so that you're not using any elastic. I know there's a bit of a shortage of that. They do have a filter pocket in them. They've got a nose adjustment as well. The thing that makes them a little different than what I've seen so far is that they've got this stabilizer in there. This is just some regular stabilizer 40 sew-in, I guess, and it's got 2 layers of that inside, so the filter is already in it. You can add more filters, you can pair this with an approved medical mask, but it does have the filters sandwiched between the 100% cotton layers and no elastic. So it's got all the little bells and whistles that might help you out. Of course it adjusts, so fits the whole thing. It can go around both sides. So it's a pretty nice little guy. I made them white. It's not very fun, but you can bleach them, you can reuse them. Make sure to keep them clean because it can be worse to use these if you're keeping that moisture barrier right in front of your face. So disclaimer, I'm not a medical professional. I'm just doing this according to what our local hospital asked for, and I hope it helps. So here we go. The first thing you want to do is go ahead and lay out your fabric. If you have 1 yard, I suggest laying it out this way. Double your fabric over, and you'll cut out 3 of these 15-inch by 7.5-inch rectangles on your 100% cotton. And then beside those 3, which are going to turn into 6 because it's doubled, you'll do just 12 of these that we're going to make into bias tape later. I use my measuring stick as a guide, and that really seemed to work. You can get in the full 12 of those. Remember 12 because you're making 6 masks and you have 1 on either side, and then the 6 at the end on 1 yard. Then you're going to cut out your stabilizer. Go ahead and cut 3 rows of 4 each. We need 12 of these total. They were about 7 by 7.5 inch, but they're a little shy of 7 inches just to make them all fit. Then you'll need a nose piece. I just used some, I think it's floral wire, and I tucked the corner up so it's not going to poke anybody. Prepare your bobbins, 3 to 4, about that. And then you're going to have these bias tapes. These are what we cut out on that 1 yard. You want to tuck the corners. There's a lot of videos online how to make bias tape, so I'm going to assume that you have seen one of those or that you can do it. But if you'd like me to, I can go back and make a video on how to make that yourself. You could also use store-bought bias tape. I just don't have a lot of money to spend on it, so I'm going to make my own. So let's get started. First, you're going to adjust your machine. You want to do, if you've got a serger, use that. If not, you're just going to finish these edges. So either do an overlock stitch or a zigzag. I'm going to overlock mine. I think it's a little cleaner than the zigzag stitch. You'll put your edges together, line them up, and pin those down. I left enough room for my presser foot to get in there. Make a mark 1.5 inches in on either side. And that is going to be where you sew to on both sides. So the in-between in the middle of that, you are not going to sew, only on the edges. You don't want a whole lot of room. We're going to be stitching pretty close to the edge the whole time. But I lined this up with my presser foot and then make a quick single stitch all the way across, just a running stitch, until you hit that 1.5 mark. And then go ahead and do the same thing to the other side. You're just going to do the 1.5 inches to the edge of your fabric and leave the space in between. And we're just going to give it a little press to open up the seam on both sides. With that pressed, you're going to sew down one of those seam sides. So you can do this by flipping the fabric or by keeping it here on the wrong side. It's going to go all the way through, so no need to worry either way. This one's a little hard to get to, but just pull back some of that fabric and see if you can keep it straight as you go across this to hold down that edge of the seam. Flip it to the right side And we're going to leave just about an inch at the top. You don't want a whole lot of room. This is where your nose piece is going to go. And we're going to give that a little press just so that we get that nice rectangle going here that we can work with to complete it. Take your 2 pieces of stabilizer, remember you need 2, sandwich that in between our little pocket here to give those filters to the mask. I find by kind of folding it in half and then holding down the foot of that to line it up with the bottom there, it keeps everything lined up and nice and even. And then I can just go back and spread that out, and it's all the way to the top. So that's a time saver for me. I hope that helps you. Give it a running stitch all the way around. We're going to start at the top or middle, wherever you want to start. Just make a little square around there and hold it in place. Now that we've got that done, we're going to add the little nose section to it. So it's got an adjustable nose. Tuck your wire up into that section that we made just before. Give it a running stitch all the way down that other side of the seam. So if you can hold that seam in place, that's ideal. And that also keeps the nose piece up there so that it's not going to come out when you wash it or anything else. So now you've got your little filter pocket, you've got your nose piece, it's starting to look like a real mask. So congratulations, you're almost there. And we're going to put in some pleats. These don't have to be exact. I would suggest if you've got little clips that you can clip it. I only have pins and that doesn't work for me, so I'm just going to do this by hand and make it approximate. These pleats need to be pretty small. Remember, we're going for a 4-inch by 8-inch finished product. So when you make these pleats, make sure that they don't overlap each other. You don't want your machine to malfunction by having too many pleats, so you only want it to fold over on itself and not hit the next pleat. Eyeball that and kind of just fan it out approximately. And I'm going to measure mine once I get it done just to see that it is pretty nearly at 4 inches. It will go a little bit flatter once we finish it. You could even press it here just to make sure that it stays down. Four inches it is. Set this down without a lot of room on the sides, so there's not really a seam allowance at all. This is a top stitch and you just want to get it as close to the edge as you can get it. If you are following that same seam that you did before, even better. That way there's not several lines, it just looks like that one. We're going to cover this up later, but the closer to the edge you can get it and still hold it in place correctly, the better. Once you've got this side done, you're going to go ahead and flip it around. Make sure that those little pleats are about the same size, and then give that another stitch the same way on that stitch line. Now we've got the mask completed, we've got the bias tape left. You can use the pre-bought store one, or you can go ahead and use the ones that you made. Fold them in half to find the center. You can also use the center line because this was folded before. You want to make sure that you get this with clean edges all around. So make sure that either side already has that pressed part in, and then sandwich those parts between so that there are no raw edges showing. We want to sew those raw edges down. I start at the top, that way I know that everything is covered in the mask, and you'll just make sure that it goes through both sides, they should be even, and get that nice clean line down the side of your mask. This is also going to hide all of our seams, all of our raw edges, all of our little lines of sewing. And it's a great reinforcement for those pleats that we put in. Once you get down to the bottom, keep sewing down. So again, those raw edges are tucked in, and you're just going to sew all the way down to make these straps. When you get to the bottom, go ahead and tuck that little tail in, and then fold it into your bias tape. Sew all the way down to the edge, and when you get to the bottom, turn that corner to give it a sharp edge. So sew to the corner, put your needle down, open up the presser foot, put it back down, sew 3 or 4 stitches more, back stitch your 3 or 4 stitches in place, and you are all set. That's all it takes to make the strap. It's not too difficult, it takes a little bit of time and a lot of bit of thread, but I think it's worth it and you don't have to worry about the elastic. Just flip this around. I redo the stitches that I did on the one side just to reinforce them a little, maybe 4 or 5 stitches back. Once you've got both of your straps done, your mask is finished. Congratulations! We did it!